Howdy. Welcome to my shop. My name's Ron and I'll be your host for the next 10 minutes or so. Being a fourth generation carpenter, wood is that's my language. It's my living, it's my hobby, it's my passion. One of those passions is making stocks. I've never had any formal training in this. I just wanted to put a piece of wood on a gun one day, and I seemed like that'd be a pretty unique challenge, so I tried it. And been going at it ever since, but honestly, I owe a lot of my success to my customers, my friends that have suggested this or that, different ways of doing it to produce a better outcome. And so I appreciate them. I owe them a great deal. The finish that I use was suggested by a friend of mine that owns a gun shop in Georgia, a guy named Dan. I've been friends with him for many years, and I owe him for that knowledge. So I don't suggest that my way is the only way. That's just not the case. I picked up my abilities to do this from watching other people and seeing other things and then figuring out how to do that. So it's a process. Some ways are better, cleaner, faster. They require less effort. On and on it goes. And I'm open to learning new and better ways. I'm always looking for that. My grandfather used to say, never let a day go by that you don't learn something. So when I do, I'll often look up, thanks, Pop, because no matter how old you get, you still need to be learning new things. So come on in, see what's going on today. Alright, I'm fixing to put the last cut of checking, and then I'm going to put the border around this Browning. And this last cut, I'm going to do it very light. And the reason is, when you're cutting, normally you cut deeper than the previous cut. And the last one I did on this stock, I was going this way. So my last cut I'm fixing to do, I'm going this way. But I'm going to go very light so that the bottoms of the troughs end up at the same depth. This is really hard to see unless you're just right here, but you can see that one direction those grooves are cut deeper than the other direction. And I'm going to come back and do the last direction, but I'm going to do it half normal strokes, half normal pressure. You can see that these are deeper than these, and the ones I'm fixing to do are these, and I'm going to even them up. Once I've done that, I'm going to come back on these edges, and I'm going to put this border in to match the original cuts. And I need to look at that stock and see if it was, I think it's triple. I think it's a triple line border. Whatever it is, I'm going to match it. And so that's where I am now. I try to do my explaining before so I can fast forward through the actual process and not be burdened with trying to slow the film down for explaining. Something I could explain right here on this last cut, especially on this last cut. I go edge to edge. On this stroke, I'm starting here and pushing it. I'm starting right at the border and pushing it away. On this stroke, I'm checkering, pushing it right up to that border. So I'm cutting edge to edge. A lot of times when I'm laying out, I don't really worry that much with edges. I just get close and stop because I'm trying to concentrate on getting my lines parallel. I'm not worried about aesthetics at the time. I'm concerned with getting my lines parallel just to get it laid out. And then I'll come back and clean those edges up later. But on this last cut, I am concerned with how it looks on the edges. And so I'm cutting edge to edge. I've also flipped it around this way so that I have a different view. Before I was pushing into these edges, now I'm pushing into those edges. I don't know anybody that checkers, personally. I've watched a couple of videos, and I've seen some people checking. There's some good ones and some bad ones videos out there. The best one I ever saw, and I don't know how to even get there again, it was a YouTube of a lady. She was a younger lady, about 30-something years old, looked like. She didn't even use a cradle to hold her workpiece. She had a rifle stock. She took a bath towel, laid it, folded it up a little bit, and laid it in her lap, and took a, I don't know if it was a Denbar E-tool, which is an electric, looks like a Dremel, or if it was a similar brand. But she took an electric tool, an electric cutter, and she did that stock so fast. She laid it out, she took a rubbing of it, laid it out, scratched out some lines on that existing stock, which had no checkering on it at all. And she cut that thing, holding it just with one hand. She had the tool in one hand, and she just went zzz, 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 and she checkered that stock in 5 minutes. Never seen anything like it. And it was clean too. This woman was an artist. She was good. Don't know her name. Don't know how to get back and find that website again. I was just looking through the computer and run up on it one day. I was thinking about buying one of those electronic tools. I never did do it. My company that I deal with, that I buy these checkering tools from, used to sell that thing years ago, but the man that made them died, and they never took up with anybody else about buying them. So I'm still scratching by hand. I've heard, actually from the guy that I was going to buy one from, I've heard that doing it by hand leaves a cleaner, less fuzzy result. And I could see how that might happen.
I'm going to start the edging, the border, and what I'm cutting out right now is the finish that's in this first line, this border line I put straight in this way, and I finished over it. So I left that finish in there, and now I'm cutting that finish out, and it's not easy to get out, especially when you got wood that's got a twisted grain. You have to kind of go slow here, tread lightly. But that's the beginning of my border. I leave that finish in there. It's kind of like a bumper. When I'm cutting, bumping into it, that finish being there keeps me from shooting across that gap and jumping out into here where I don't want to be. So I leave that finish in there on purpose. And there's method to my madness. I'm ready to start this border. I found the original forearm. It's not in very good shape. It was a piece of saltwood is the reason it got replaced anyway. All this corrosion is just salt residue, pulls it out of the atmosphere. And on a humid day, this thing will just have little beads of sweat popped up all over it. This has a double line border, which you can see that border right there. It's two lines as opposed to a three line, or sometimes borderless, where there's no border. The checkering just stops. But this is the original, so I'm going to imitate that. I'm just going to lay my checkering tool, the two-line cutter, into the existing last line of the pattern and create a new line outside which is my border. That gives me my spacing. Once I get that scratched in there, I'll probably come back with a single cutter and just deepen it. Typically a border doesn't sit near as deep as the checks themselves. And then you're cutting into a finish, which this outside the checking has got a ton of finish on it. And when you're cutting straight into finish, it'll clog up your checkering tools. It just gums them up. Like, come on, thing. Well, maybe you can see that. It'll get in there and it'll just fill them up. So I have a bottle of lacquer thinner I keep close by, and with this particular finish that I use, lacquer thinner apparently cuts it very well, because just a few seconds in there and then you can just tap it and that finish comes out very, very well. It'll just keep it clean. Of course, if you leave the lid off that little bottle, in about 2 hours it won't be there. It'll evaporate. This is a zero tolerance operation. There's just no room for error. Forgive my German Shepherd. He's old and senile, and he can't hear anymore. He can't see too good, but he is determined to protect me from something. So he will sit outside my door and imagine there's something out there and bark at it. He's been a trusted friend for a lot of years. Okay, I'm going to have to show you something holding this camera that I can't show you from that stand. Where these borders come together, right there at that point, right there at that point, I can't run that with my double line checkering tool all the way out past that point, or it'll scratch a double line all the way out to there. I like to make a single, so I have to extend that with a single cutter. Extend that on out to there and into the inside point down here. I have to bring that in with a single cutter. Now where you run into curves, and you'll have curves in your life, hopefully, you have to cut this, you have to clean this up with a chisel. Just cut it by hand. Follow that curve, clean out. See how ragged that is? And that'll be all clean here in a few minutes. Then you got to cut this border line. You can barely scratch it in with a checkering tool, but you can't go in very long strokes, because if you go in a very long stroke, pretty soon you're not in the curve anymore. So you have to take little bitty short strokes and just kind of ease your way around it. Then you can clean it up with a veining tool, a V cutting tool. So all these points here, all the way around, all of them will have to be extended. See how this is not completely extended out there? I'll have to extend all those points, and you can't really see that from the distance, but the checkering itself is finished. And then I'll put some stain in that here in a few minutes, and then I'm going to slick up this outside, which I know it's shiny, but if I go over it with some 12,000 sandpaper, it will be smoother than what it is now. This is just a sprayed finish. After, I don't know, 15, 18 coats of spray, that's what it looks like. coming down to the wire. This looks smooth, and it is pretty good. It's got some little tiny, little bitty, I don't know, bumps. I guess just something it picks up after when you're spraying. If there's any dust flying around in the air, it'll land on your stock. I've got some paper. It's cloth actually. This stuff is fine. It is 12,000 grit. This makes Charmin feel rough. And you can't really see it, but you can tell when you feel it after you go over it. You can tell it's smoother. I don't know how to explain it, but it takes that little bit of roughness out of there. I'm having to protect using my finger against this metal, this barrel, so it doesn't touch any metal. I don't know that it would cut the bluing off of it really, but it really gives it a slick finish. And then I wax that after I've buffed it with this 12,000. I'll put a coat of wax on it, or two. Now I sanded that, or I buffed it first before I put the stain in here, because I don't want to put the stain in and then buff against that stain and get that stain in my sandpaper. This is a can of ancient red mahogany stain. This is Minwax red mahogany. It happened to be the color that matched the original finish better than anything else I could find, so that's the reason I'm using it. And I'm going to grab me a piece of cloth, cut me a little swatch. I would use a brush if I had one handy, but this will work. This stain is so old it's turned into a gel. Now the finish on the stock seals it, so this stain cannot penetrate that finish. It's just going down into checking, and that's it. I'll wipe off the excess. What I like to use is linseed oil. And what the color that I like, the effect that I like, is I put some black paint in my linseed oil, and I mixed it up, and I've got black linseed oil. And to me, that is about as pretty as it gets. Several years ago, Remington started coming out with some of their guns with a real dark, almost a black look in their checking. And I didn't know how they did it. At first, I didn't even know if I liked it or not. But the longer I looked at it, the more I realized I did like it. Now I'm just going to take that stain. Once you put stain on, it's in there. Just like when you fill up a bathtub full of water, it's full. You don't have to wait 20 minutes to make sure that bathtub is full. As soon as you fill it up with water, it's full. When you put stain in grain, it's in there. It's 100% saturated. All you're wiping off is the super saturated excess. And that's what it looks like. That stain almost gives a little tiny bit of a shine to the checking, which is okay. I like my linseed oil because it leaves a dull finish. And linseed is a tremendous water repellent and sealer. You put a couple coats of that linseed, and you can put it on anytime you want. You just keep adding it. After your hunting season is over, you can put a coat of linseed on there. Alright, now when that stain is a little drier, I'm going to put some wax on this. In the meantime, I'm going to wax the buttstock of this same shotgun. This is the other end of that shotgun. I had to refinish this. This is the original wood, and the checking was all rubbed. It had big old rub spots all in it where it had been handled, you know. So I had to repoint all the checking, and redo the outline, and I had to put the finishing process back on this. Is this the original white line butt pad that came on it, and then the metal. Somebody had already done the metal, and they did a jam up job. It's a really, really pretty metal work on this piece. So I'm going to do the same thing with this 12,000 and just polish this finish up a little bit. We'll give it a coat of wax. I will add that you need to let your finish dry about 4 or 5 days before you try to do this buffing process. If you don't, if it's too soft, you can scratch it and you can peel it off if it's way too soft. So you want to let it completely cure out. The instructions on that permalin can say 5 days. That's slick as the top of my head. This wax is 100% carnauba. I think it's 100%. I don't know if I got it from Midway or Brownells, but that's the brand that I use. It's kind of pricey, a little expensive, but it works really, really nice. If you do happen to get wax in your checking, take a toothbrush and cut about half the length of the bristles off the toothbrush with a good pair of scissors, and you have a short toothbrush, which looks like that. Just shorten that thing down. It's real stiff bristle, and you can take any wax you get in your checking and go with the lines, and it'll just brush it right out of there. If you get wax on the metal of the gun, not a problem. Wax is better than oil for conditioning your gun metal. And there you go. One of the finest over and unders ever made, bar none. You can poll the committee and take a vote anywhere in the world, except maybe Italy. They like their Berettas. This is a Midas grade Browning Superposed 12 gauge. Fine machine. Well, thanks for choosing to spend your time here with me today. I hope you've enjoyed this program. I'll try to post a new segment each weekend. In addition, if you'd like to read about a stock that I made and then it took a 20-foot free fall, click on the link at the bottom of this page. It's called The Broken Gun. It's a story I wrote a few years ago about my 2 boys. Sometimes life's hard and things get broken. Now and then we get a chance to fix them. I'm so grateful for the opportunity I had to repair this broken stock. It led to a restoration that I never could have imagined. As always, if you like this video, please click the like button and share this with your friends. Have a great day.